Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode number 49, Weekly Thought, Retina, and Chinese Poker. Well, here we are at episode 49 of the iPad Possibilities Podcast. Thanks for joining me once again, and thanks for your time. And today, I just had a couple of different things I want to talk about. I wanted to talk about the possibilities of a Retina display coming to the iPad and some other devices that Apple will soon make. And I've got a review as well of an application called ChinesePoker. I did receive this application from the developer free of charge. It's a $5 application that's universal, so it works both on all of your iOS devices. So that's an easy way to say it now that Apple's formalized that on how to say that. So I've got that coming up today with this week's Weekly Thought episode. So, as many people are aware, Apple has announced and pretty much released iPhone 4. It's coming out at the end of June. And one of the biggest features, one of the most noticeable features to most people once they pick it up and start using it, is this new display. This display is what Apple is calling the Retina Display. Kind of an unusual name, but Retina, as you know, the eye. So basically the concept here is that to your eye, it will look no different to you than paper. It'll be real. The images that you see will, instead of being behind this glass display as some distant thing, be painted onto the top of the glass as something that is real, living, and just an amazing looking display that your eyes will not be able to tell the difference between this and paper. It might look even better than paper. It's an amazing display from all accounts. I have not yet had my hands on this, but come end of June, I will be in the Apple Store for sure and taking a look at this new iPhone, getting a feel for how this display might impact the iPad at one point in time. And I think it will come with iPad 2. We'll have a Retina display. I think the cool thing is, as the iPhone tests this technology, they're able to refine it and get the costs down to create a larger display Retina iPad. I think that'll definitely be around next year for iPad 2. And I think we'll see Retina displays on the next generation of the iPod Touches coming out in September. We may see Retina displays used on other iOS devices that Apple decides to come out with. So I think the possibilities here are great. I think it's going to be an amazing revelation to see when the Retina display does come to the iPad, because I know the experience I have right now with the iPad, and it's great. The display is wonderful. I have no problem reading books, consuming content through this display, and I can only wonder, can only imagine what it will be like when we have this Retina display blown up on this iPad, because it'll be, it's going to be amazing. We'll have lifelike magazines, lifelike books now, even more so. When I picked up the iPad for the first time and looked at the display and started reading books, it was lifelike to me. But now it'll be even more lifelike. It'll be even more true to what our eyes and what we imagine images to be like. It'll be as if it's not an electronic device, but more, these are just images that are painted onto our iOS devices that immediately refresh. This will get rid of the whole notion of us needing something like a Kindle, something like something that is e-ink, because it's more lifelike. No, this will be the most lifelike experience anyone will have with their technology. And the cool thing is, Apple is quadrupling the pixel density, the DPI of their displays, starting out with the iPhone. And the cool thing is, in the past with regular traditional computers, when you increase this DPI, when you increase this resolution, all that happens is all the images, all the icons get smaller, right? With traditional computers on the Mac, I've noticed as you get higher pixel density, higher resolution displays, everything just gets smaller. So it gives you more screen real estate in that same size screen, but it really doesn't wow you. It doesn't make it any more lifelike, any more readable to the user. It just makes everything smaller. But now with the iOS, what Apple has been doing, what they're doing now with this iPhone is, no, the icons won't get smaller. The text won't get smaller. Everything will be the same size as it is today, but instead you'll have super, super high density, lifelike images. They're literally painted on the screen. Instead of just everything getting smaller, Apple's switching the tables, turning it all around, and making it into something that is actually a useful feature for the mass audience, the mass consumer audience that will receive the iPhone. They will just know that this is amazing. I want this on all my devices. That's going to be one of the biggest reasons to upgrade the iPad 2. The upgrade, right? We have the iPads, and I didn't think I'd be upgrading right away. I didn't think that iPad 2 would wow me. But now, since displaying the iPhone 4, I think I will be wowed. I think that beyond adding a camera and a gyroscope, the screen will be the selling point for the next iPad. And I think it's going to be amazing to see if developers can utilize this high pixel density display in any other way by instead of just looking great. Will we see any apps that really take advantage of this to utilize? I'm not sure if we'll have extra screen real estate. What I've seen is we won't. It'll be the same screen real estate, but everything will instead look lifelike. So those were some of my thoughts with the Retina Display. I'm very excited, as you can probably hear, that this is a cool display, and I think that this will definitely come to the iPad. I think the next version of the iPad will have this Retina Display. That is going to be one of the huge things a part of iPad 2. And it's kind of a letdown that, hey, we already know it's coming out. But it's going to be fun to see this on the iPhone and the iPod Touch, hopefully. And when the iPad version comes, it's just going to wow everybody. So that is the Retina, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more in the future. But with that said, I'd like to move on to the other half of this podcast, and that is an app review that I had a chance to take a look at this week. So I received an email from the developer of an application. This app is called ChinesePoker, and after getting my hands on it, I did get a free copy of this app. I want to full disclose that so everyone knows when I review apps that I did get this free of charge. That's just out there. And with that said, it's a beautiful app. It works really well. The premise behind it is the iPad and your other iOS devices become this game board for Chinese poker. And the way it works, you're able to play against computers, but the real fun of it is playing against other people. It works with Apple's Bluetooth technology to connect to other iOS devices such as iPhones, iPod Touches, and iPads. And I like to use the iPad as the base station, the dealer, the host device for these games. And then I connect to my other devices to play against other people. And ChinesePoker, if you're not familiar with it, it's a pretty fun game. Basically, you have 13 cards, and you try to create 3 hands of different poker hands. So 1 3-card hand and 2 5-card hands, and you try to create the highest scoring combination with those 3 hands. And you bet and play against your opponents. And setup, I must say, was very easy. You just have to make sure your Bluetooth is turned on before entering the app. And once the host is set up, setup was about, I'd say about 60 seconds from launch to get the game off and rolling. And it was just a great experience with how fast the refresh rate was and different things like that. Beautiful user interface both on the iPhone and the smaller iOS devices out there. It's a great app. Some suggestions I would give to the developer is I'd love to see, like with other games, the ability to connect through, Facebook or some other social, some way to play people across the web. I know with Magic Piano, I'm able to do duets with people across the web. and I'm not sure how they do that, but it's an amazing feature. That is the one thing that's really lacking for this game for me to get its full recommendation, is I'd love to see the ability to play with people across the web that I don't know. I'd love to see possibly an integration with the Plus network, or coming out later this year with iOS 4 is that Game Center. We didn't hear about that on the keynote, but that was announced back in April. This Game Center, this new basically Xbox Live done for the iOS devices. But I'd love to see that kind of integration with Chinese poker, so I can play people across the world and have some sort of ratings and scoreboard. That'd be fantastic. And that's the one thing missing, but overall great release, a great application that I'd recommend, unless the only holdback is if you want to play people across the World Wide Web. That is currently not a feature. But if you're looking for an app to play your friends, to play your spouse in a game of Chinese poker, this is a great game. Another quick suggestion, if you're the developer listening to this, is I'd love to see the ability to use the iPad as your game board, and the ability to just have that as a game board that people look at, and you hold your cards perhaps in your smaller iOS device, and utilizing that somehow as the iPad as a centerpiece, with your smaller iOS devices as your personal hand. So I'd like to see some enhancements, but for the first version I've played with, it's a great version. It's $5 in the App Store. It is universal, as I've said before, and check it out. It's called Chinese Poker. It's a 13 card hand, and I'll have a link to that in the enhanced version of this podcast, which you'll receive through iTunes and the premium feed. If you're on the iTunes App Store, I will have a link to this in the show notes. So check it out, and that is my review of Chinese Poker. If you would like to send some feedback to me, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can email me at iPadPossibilities@gmail.com and 209-542-iPad, and send those voicemails in, those emails in, whatever it is, just send it in. And if it's appropriate, I'll play back or read back some of the feedback on the live shows Sunday night. And that'd be great. I love hearing back from you as a listener to see where I can improve and some different topics I might want to cover in the future. I also wanted to take the opportunity to announce that June 19th, I will be at PodCamp, Ohio. It's in Columbus, Ohio, June 19th. It's a free conference for podcasters. I will be there all day long, and actually I will be on the iPad show. You might be a listener to that show as well. Well, I'll be on that show. They're doing a live show from PodCamp, Ohio. So that's a week from Saturday. And if you're in the Columbus area, I'd love to meet with some of the listeners and all that kind of stuff. And check me out on the iPad show this coming week from Saturday, so June 19th. And I'm looking into doing a live show from PodCamp, Ohio myself. So that's like an all-day event in Columbus, Ohio on June 19th. So I wanted to give some people some advance notice that that's happening, and should have a lot of great stuff out of that. I'm going to see if I can actually do a live show all from the iPad using Ustream and some other tools, and I'm going to be looking into that. So it should be a lot of fun. And if you're in the Ohio area, I'd love to meet up with everyone, and that'd be great. So just wanted to send that announcement out before I close the show today. With that said, I'd like to just leave some ways you can support this podcast. First off, in iTunes, simply rating and reviewing the show is very helpful. So I know, so you can let other listeners and potential listeners know what you think about this show. If you have some criticism, or if you have some concerns about this podcast, the best way for me to address those concerns is through email. So iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. That way I can interact with you and kind of get a better understanding of what I need to fix and improve on, that would be the best way to do that, because I have no way of communicating with reviewers to improve this show, so that's the best way to do that. Some other ways to support this show, one of the best ways is by becoming a premium member of the podcast. If you go to thepossibilitiesnetwork.com and just go to the premium page there for the iPad Possibilities podcast, you'll find out all the info there. It is only $2 a month, and with that $2, it'll pretty much pay for itself because you'll be the first to know of the free promo codes I get from developers. I'm getting more and more free applications that I'm able to give to you as a listener, and as a part of the premium subscription, you are given an email before any of the shows go out, so you'll have first come, first served basis on those free apps. You'll also get the episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You'll get ad-free versions of the episode. A lot more. Check it out at thepossibilitiesnetwork.com. You can also support the show through the App Store by purchasing the iPad Possibilities podcast app. For $2.99, get the episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday instead of Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and a couple of video episodes every now and then in that app. So check it out in the App Store. With that said, I'm going to wrap up the show for today. Please join me and a couple of other guests with me on the Sunday night live show. Every Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am joined by at least one other to do the live show. And you can check out all the information about the live show at thepossibilitiesnetwork.com. So I will talk to everybody again Sunday night, and until then, this is Tim Chatton of the iPad Possibilities Podcast. Have a great weekend.